What happens when a cherished childhood hero walks into what should be a simple, friendly interview, only to be met with unexpected hostility? Brace yourself for one of the most tense, unforgettable moments in daytime television, where politeness collided with confrontation, respect clashed with ridicule, and one man's patience was tested like never before. Stick around, hit that subscribe button, and tap the notification bell, because this story will make you rethink everything you thought you knew about interviews. And don't forget to comment below. Did Ralph handle this confrontation the right way? Or was he too polite for his own good? The morning began like any other at the View studio. Ralph Macchio arrived early, impeccably dressed in a navy blazer and crisp white shirt, ready to promote his newest project. The Karate Kid star, now in his 60s, still carried the boyish charm that made him a household name decades ago. He was expecting a 7-minute segment, light, friendly, and straightforward, according to his publicist. But from the moment Joy Behar picked up her notes, it was clear she had a very different agenda. The other hosts, Whoopi Goldberg, Sarah Haynes, and Alyssa Farah Griffin, chatted casually, oblivious to the storm about to unfold. "Ralph Macchio is here, everybody," Whoopi announced as the cameras rolled, "star of The Karate Kid and Cobra Kai. Ralph, welcome back to The View." Ralph smiled warmly, sliding into the guest chair. "Thank you so much for having me. Whoopi, always a pleasure." The conversation started smoothly, with Sarah Haynes asking about Ralph's latest work. "I'm developing a new series exploring mentorship through martial arts," Ralph explained, his voice calm and professional. "It's about teaching kids ancient wisdom to handle modern challenges, cyberbullying, social media pressure, through discipline and respect." Then came the twist. Joy leaned forward, her pen tapping aggressively on her notepad. "Ralph, can I ask you something?" she said. "Isn't it irresponsible to promote fighting to children? Kids are literally hurting each other in schools, and you're still teaching them to fight." The room went cold. Ralph's smile wavered slightly, but he stayed composed. "Joy, martial arts isn't about violence. It's about discipline, self-control, and respect," he replied. "Oh, please," Joy waved dismissively. "That's just marketing speak. At the end of the day, you're teaching kids to hit people. How is that not promoting violence?" Whoopi shifted uneasily, trying to intervene. "Joy, Ralph is explaining martial arts is more than fighting." "Who cares what he thinks?" Joy snapped, eyes locked on Ralph. "You made millions off a movie where a kid beats other kids. Now you want to do it again. Isn't it time to move on from this karate thing?" Ralph took a deep breath, hands clasped calmly. The Karate Kid wasn't about beating people up. It was about learning to stand up to bullies and face your fears. The final tournament? That was never about aggression. It was about self-growth. Joy smirked. "Nice spin. But let's be honest, you peaked 40 years ago with one movie and have been riding that wave ever since. Isn't it time to accept your 15 minutes are over?" The tension in the room was palpable. Alyssa looked uncomfortable. Sarah stared at her hands, and Whoopi opened her mouth to speak. But Ralph raised a gentle hand. "Joy, I respect that you have strong opinions," Ralph said calmly. "But your hostility isn't necessary. I've spent over 40 years working in this industry, and I've been fortunate to be part of projects that resonate across generations." Joy laughed, though it was anything but friendly. "I'm just being honest, something most people in this business aren't brave enough to do. But really, Ralph, Karate Kid, Cobra Kai, now this new project, it's all the same story, isn't it? The underdog learning martial arts. How many times can you tell that story?" Ralph's voice remained steady. "Actually, If you'd watched Cobra Kai, you'd see that my character, Daniel, has evolved significantly. As the interview continued, a subtle edge crept into Ralph Macchio's voice for the first time. The conversation shifted from his work to deeper struggles, being a father, managing a business, and facing the consequences of past choices. It's about growth and maturity, he explained calmly. But Joy Behar was unimpressed. I tried to watch it, she said with exaggerated disgust. Made it 10 minutes before I had to turn it off. Same juvenile nonsense, just older actors who should know better. Ralph's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Well, I'm sorry you didn't enjoy it. But millions of people have found meaning in these stories about perseverance and standing up for what's right, he replied. Standing up for what's right? Joy's voice rose sharply. You mean punching people in the face? That's your version of right? The tension in the room escalated. Whoopi Goldberg tried to intervene. Joy, I think you're mischaracterizing what Ralph is saying. Am I? Joy shot back. Or am I the only one here willing to ask the hard questions? We talk about gun violence, bullying, toxic masculinity every day, and then we welcome someone who's made a career glorifying fighting. Ralph leaned forward, hands still clasped, knuckles whitening. Joy, have you ever studied martial arts? Spoken to children who practice karate, judo, or taekwondo? I don't need to, she snapped. It's organized violence, with fancy uniforms, a way for insecure people to feel powerful by hurting others. That couldn't be further from the truth, Ralph said firmly. Martial arts saved my life. It taught confidence, discipline, purpose, and that true strength comes from restraint, not aggression. Joy rolled her eyes dramatically. Oh, please, spare us the after-school special speech. You were an actor in a movie, not some mystical martial arts guru. The studio audience began murmuring uncomfortably. Ralph heard the whispers, but remained focused on Joy, whose enjoyment of his discomfort was obvious. I'm starting to wonder if there's something personal behind this attack, Ralph said quietly. Because this feels more than just a disagreement about a movie or TV show. Personal? Joy's eyes flashed. You want personal. Yora has been clinging to relevance, recycling the same tired story, profiting off parents' nostalgia. That's personal enough. The other hosts sat stunned. This was no longer tough questioning. It had turned vindictive. Ralph slowly rose from his chair, face flushed, but voice controlled. Joy, I came here to talk about a project that can help children, not to be personally attacked by someone unwilling to have a real conversation. Sit down, Joy said dismissively. We're not done here, she added. Actually, I think we are, Ralph said, his voice now carrying a steel edge that hadn't been there before Joy leaned back, smirking. What's wrong, Ralph? Can't handle a little tough questioning? Maybe you should have stayed in the dojo, where everyone bows to you and calls you sensei. That's enough, Whoopi said firmly. No, Whoopi, Joy pressed. This is exactly it. Challenge his precious karate narrative, and he runs away. Very zen of you, Ralph. For the first time since the interview began, Ralph's famous composure began to crack. You want tough questioning? Fine, he said, stepping closer. But tough questioning isn't being deliberately cruel and disrespectful. Cruel? Joy laughed harshly. I'm being honest about your career. If that feels cruel, maybe you need a long look in the mirror. My career? Ralph's voice rose. You want to talk about careers? You've spent decades at this table tearing down people who actually create, who actually inspire others. The confrontation escalated to a new level. Ralph's composure was cracking, but his words carried weight. What have you built, Joy? What have you contributed besides negativity and cynicism? The studio audience gasped audibly. Joy's face flushed red. "Excuse me? I've been a comedian and television host longer than you've been relevant. I don't need to justify my career to a washed-up teen actor." Ralph shook his head, incredulous. "Comedian? Is that what this is? Because I don't see anyone laughing. I see you using your platform to humiliate a guest who came here in good faith." Sarah Haynes tentatively suggested a commercial break, but Joy was not backing down. "No. He wants to question my career? Fine. Let's do this. You made one good movie 40 years ago, Ralph. One everything since has been an attempt to recreate that moment because you know you'll never top it." Ralph's jaw tightened visibly. "Joy, you know nothing about my life or my work. You admitted you couldn't even watch 10 minutes of a show that's been praised by critics and audiences alike." "I don't need to watch garbage to know it's garbage," Joy shot back. Ralph's voice cracked with frustration. "Teaching kids to fight? Do you hear yourself? Countless children have written to me over the years, telling me martial arts gave them confidence, discipline, and a positive outlet for their energy and emotions. They learned to stand up to bullies, succeed in school, and find purpose." "Oh, here we go with the fan letters," Joy mocked. "Let me guess. They all say the same thing. Thanks, Ralph, for teaching me that violence solves problems." Ralph's voice rang out across the studio. "No, they thank me for showing that with hard work and dedication, they can overcome obstacles. That's what martial arts is really about." Joy rose abruptly, matching his intensity. "And what about the kids who get hurt? The ones who take your lessons too far and end up in juvenile detention for assault?" "That's not fair, and you know it," Ralph said, flushed but firm. "By that logic, we shouldn't teach sports because kids might get competitive. We shouldn't teach music because some musicians struggle with addiction. You're creating a false equivalency." Joy matched his volume. "False equivalency? You literally made a movie where the climax is a teenager beating up other teenagers in a tournament. How is that not promoting fighting?" "Because context matters," Ralph exploded, hands thrown into the air. "The context was a young man systematically bullied, learning not just how to defend himself, but when and why the tournament wasn't about aggression. It was about proving he could face his fears." "Oh, please," Joy waved dismissively. "Dress it up however you want. But at the end of the day, your triumph was a kid kicking another kid in the face." Ralph paused, breathing deeply. His voice was quieter now, but more intense than ever. "Joy, I think I understand what's really happening here." "Enlighten me," she said sarcastically. "You're not angry about martial arts. You're not concerned about children. You're angry because you see someone who's found success and longevity in something you don't understand or respect. And rather than try to understand it, you'd rather tear it down." Joy's eyes narrowed dangerously. "Don't you dare psychoanalyze me, Ralph. I've been in this business since before you could spell Hollywood." "Then act like it," Ralph said firmly. "Act like a professional who knows how to conduct an interview without personal attacks and misrepresentation." "Misrepresentation?" Joy laughed bitterly. "I'm stating facts. You're a one-hit wonder coasting on nostalgia for decades." "Facts?" Ralph's voice cracked again. "Joy, Cobra Kai has been one of the most successful shows of the streaming era. It's praised for writing, character development, and its nuanced approach to redemption and growth. But you wouldn't know that. You couldn't be bothered to watch more than 10 minutes. "I don't need to watch hours of something to know it's not for me," Joy retorted, dismissing him yet again. The tension had reached its peak. Ralph's patience was gone, but his words struck with precision. "But you do need to watch it before publicly condemning it on national television," he said firmly. "You're supposed to be a journalist, Joy. Where's your journalistic integrity?" Joy's face deepened in color. You've been playing the same character for 4 decades because you don't have the range to do anything else. The same character. Ralph shook his head in disbelief. Joy! Daniel LaRusso, in the original films, was a teenager discovering himself. Daniel LaRusso in Cobra Kai is a man in his 50s, grappling with fatherhood, marriage, business, and the consequences of past decisions. If you can't see the difference, that says more about your understanding of character development than about my range as an actor. Alyssa Farah Griffin attempted to intervene. Maybe we could talk about Ralph's other projects. What other projects? Joy cut her off sharply. Name one thing he's done that isn't tied to karate or the Karate Kid. Ralph paused, visibly holding back his frustration. When he spoke, his voice was deadly quiet. Joy, I've had a 40-year career in television and film. I've worked across multiple genres. But even if I hadn't, even if the Karate Kid were the only thing I ever did, it would still be more meaningful than anything you've contributed to popular culture. The studio fell silent. Joy's mouth fell open in shock. For 40 years, Ralph continued, his voice growing stronger, children and adults have drawn inspiration from Daniel LaRusso's story. They've learned perseverance, how to stand up to bullies, and the value of mentorship and respect. What has your career given people besides cynicism and mean-spirited commentary? Joy's voice shook with anger. How dare you insult me on my own show? Your show? Ralph glanced at the other hosts. I thought this was called The View, not the Joy Behar Hour. But I guess that explains why you feel entitled to attack guests instead of interviewing them. Whoopi finally interjected, attempting to defuse the situation. Okay, let's take a step back here. No, Whoopi, Ralph cut her off, eyes locked on Joy. I want to hear you explain how tearing down other people's work qualifies as entertainment or journalism. Joy leaned forward, unyielding. At least I'm not a has-been, desperately clinging to past glory. Past glory? Ralph's voice rose. Joy, Cobra Kai premiered 5 years ago to massive success. My new project is in development, with one of the largest streaming platforms in the world. What part of that screams past glory to you? It's all the same thing. Karate, Joy shouted. Don't you get tired of being Daniel LaRusso? Don't you want to be Ralph Macchio for once? Ralph paused, calm settling over his features. You know what, Joy? You're right about one thing. I am tired. Tired of listening to someone who has no respect for me, my work, or basic professional courtesy. He stepped back from the panel, his decision made. I came here to talk about a project that helps children build confidence and discipline. Instead, I've been subjected to a 20-minute character assassination by someone more interested in controversy than meaningful conversation. Joy crossed her arms defiantly. So, what are you going to do about it? Ralph looked at her, then the other hosts, then straight into the cameras. I'm going to do what Daniel LaRusso would do. I'm walking away with my dignity intact. Oh, how noble, Joy said, dripping with sarcasm. Running away when things get tough. Real inspiring message for kids. Ralph stopped mid-turn. The studio silent except for the hum of cameras. He turned back, locking eyes with her. You know what, Joy? You want to keep pushing? Fine. Let's talk about running away when things get tough. Let's talk about hiding behind a desk to tear down people who actually put themselves out there. Let's talk about building a career on negativity, because it's easier than creating something positive. Joy's face went pale. You don't know what you're talking about, do you? Ralph stepped closer to the panel, his voice calm but charged with intensity. 40 years I've been in this business. Joy. 40 years of auditions, rejections, criticism, and yes, successes. Through it all, I've tried to create work that matters to people. I create honest television. Joy snapped back, though her earlier venom had dulled slightly. Honest? Ralph laughed, though there was no humor in it. Joy, you've spent this entire interview attacking me for things you invented in your own head. You criticized a show you admit you never even watched. You dismissed the positive impact martial arts has had on millions of children worldwide. Where exactly is the honesty in that? Whoopi tried again to intervene. Ralph, maybe we should all take a breath here. No, Whoopi, Ralph said, voice now completely steady. Joy wanted honesty. So let's be honest. Joy, you're a bully. You use your position on this show to attack people who can't fight back because they're trying to be professional. Joy stood abruptly, chair scraping against the floor. How dare you call me a bully? What else would you call it? Ralph spread his arms wide. You invited me here under the pretense of an interview, then spent 20 minutes humiliating me on national television. You attacked my character, my career, my values, all while hiding behind your desk and microphone. If that's not bullying, what is? I was doing my job, Joy spat through gritted teeth. Your job? Ralph's voice rose. Your job is to ask thoughtful questions and have meaningful conversations. Your job isn't deciding before the interview even starts that you'll tear someone down. Joy pointed an accusatory finger. You can't handle criticism. Criticism? Ralph's voice climbed one final time. Joy, criticism would be saying you didn't like the show, and explaining why, asking challenging questions about themes or messages. What you did was launch a personal attack based on ignorance and preconceived notions. He turned to the camera, addressing viewers directly. I want everyone watching at home to understand something. I've done interviews for 4 decades. I've faced tough questions, hostile journalists, critics who genuinely disliked my work. But I've never encountered someone more interested in creating conflict than having a conversation. Joy slammed her hand on the table. Don't turn this into a victim narrative. I'm not a victim, Joy, Ralph said, turning back to her. I just know when I'm wasting my time. He began removing his wireless microphone. I've clearly been wasting my time here, he continued calmly. Sarah, Alyssa, Whoopi, you've always been professional and respectful. But I won't sit here while someone uses me as a punching bag for their own issues. Joy's voice shook with fury. My own issues? What issues? Ralph paused, microphone in hand. Joy, I honestly don't know what I did to make you so angry. Maybe you had a bad experience with martial arts as a kid. Maybe you decided you didn't like me before I walked in. Whatever it is, it's your problem, not mine. He set down the microphone, straightened his jacket, and delivered his closing words with quiet authority. I hope someday you figure out how to channel that anger into something constructive, instead of using it to hurt people just doing their jobs. Joy stood speechless, face red with fury and embarrassment. Ralph nodded to Whoopi. Thanks for having me on, Whoopi. I'm sorry it ended this way. Before anyone could react, he walked toward the exit. Don't let him leave like this, Joy called out desperately. Ralph stopped at the edge of the set, turned one final time, and said calmly, Joy, you made yourself look bad. I refuse to help you do it to me too. And with that, Ralph Macchio walked off the set of The View, leaving a stunned studio audience and a panel frozen in silence. The last thing viewers saw before the emergency commercial break was Joy Behar sitting at the table, staring at the empty guest chair, while the other hosts exchanged uneasy glances and murmurs of amazement filled the studio. What do you think? Did Ralph handle the situation correctly? Or should he have stayed and continued defending himself? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and make sure to subscribe for more incredible stories. Like this, do you think Joy Behar crossed the line?